And welcome back to the Overreaction Monday video here on the Orange Bloods YouTube channel. As you can see, Jeff Ketchum is not here, so we went to the bullpen and really picked in a guy that, honestly, you would want to talk to and hear from anywhere, Jason Sukamel, who is, the managing editor and
I don't even know, Honor.
I don't even know what your title is.
Editor's in there somewhere. I don't even.
You know what you have? You know what you have? You have one of those titles that they give like one of the college coaches, and they're like offensive coordinator / run game coordinator / all these other titles.
Associate head coach, just something to throw a little more money on. I need to talk to Catch about the more money part, but
well, we can have a conversation about that. But we'll save that for another our quitting podcast. But jokes aside, and with thanks to our sponsor here, the Rogue Apothecary, for all your CBD needs. And look, the holidays are coming up. And you're going to need something to get through mama, your in-laws, your outlaws, all them kids coming to the house. And I think the people at Rogue got you covered. So I know you got stuff for other people. You might need a little something for yourself. But, I really thought, Jason, it'd be great to have you, since Ketch couldn't do it today. There's only one topic that's going on right now in the Longhorn universe. You may have heard about it because that's all you've been doing all weekend long. Your Friday started off normal, and then you've been going nonstop. So I'll set it up, Jason, and then I'll just let you go from there. Obviously, Quinn Ewers, former 5-star from Southlake Carroll High, and there was a point where there was some interest in Texas. He was committed to Texas as of last year. Decommits, goes to Ohio State. A lot of people get upset about that. But, everyone always wondered, would there be a chance? Then Ohio State basically gets their guy, gets their quarterback. He's a freshman. And I think Quinn understands, all right, this is going to be a little bit of a battle here. So on Friday, he decides to go into the transfer portal, which is kind of been the move that everyone's been expecting. From that point, Jason, I'll let you take it from there. What has happened, and can you just give people like an update as to where we are? And I know that's a heavy question right there.
Yeah, I'll try to give a kind of a nutshell version of it, so we're not here all day. But he entered the portal officially on Friday. News leaked out Friday evening. I mean, it was pretty well into the evening Friday night. I was hunkered down on the couch watching a movie at that point, so I don't remember what time exactly it was. But like you said, Omar, we'd kind of been anticipating it, and we'd heard rumors. And I actually heard from an Ohio State reporter a couple of weeks ago saying, hey, for the first time, I think there may be some legs to this. He's kind of kicking the tires on it. It just made sense. I mean, it almost feels like Texas fans, and now maybe Texas Tech and TCU or whoever else, but Texas fans in particular almost willed it into existence, because everybody's looking at the Ohio State situation, and CJ Stroud's a freshman, and they've got a couple other good young quarterbacks on their roster. They just picked up a commitment from Devin Brown, a guy that Texas really wanted. He'd be a year younger than Quinn Ewers, of course. But when Quinn Ewers committed to Ohio State, it was a bit of a head scratcher just because of the quarterback depth Ohio State had. He then reclassifies and graduates a year early. This year, he sits on the bench and watches. I mean, he didn't even last there a full semester. So I understand why he's transferring. It totally makes sense. Everything about it makes sense. But then you're like, well, why'd you pick Ohio State to begin with? It's just kind of some curious stuff that goes on there. But Friday night news breaks, the stuff we've all kind of been waiting for, it, if and when it was going to happen, that he is entering the transfer portal. And it ended up hitting that night that he was in the portal. And we're on Monday here. It feels like I got to check my days here, but things were pretty quiet that night. I did reach out to a source very, very close to Quinn, and we were texting back and forth, and we were kind of communicating. This person was communicating more through emojis than through text. I would ask him a question. It would be, this person would be like, thumbs up, or the heart for the love your question, meaning, yeah, it's true. Like, hey, has Texas been in touch? And I was told, yes, obviously Texas had been in touch. And I said, hey, am I correct in perceiving that maybe Quinn would like to get this done quickly? He has really till probably mid-January if he wants to, before he would enroll until the school of his choice on more. But my thinking is he's going to want to get this done quickly so that he can affect other recruits before they sign next Wednesday. And this person did say, yeah, can kind of confirm, yeah, he's trying to do something pretty quickly. Well, then on Sunday morning, we get word that he is in Lubbock with his family, with his parents, visiting the new Texas Tech staff. And then a report comes out Sunday night that he's going to visit TCU today, Monday. I don't know what time that visit's happening, but Steve Sarkisian's been home with them. So those are the three schools. A&M was a school originally, before he ever entered the portal. There was some chatter about A&M and Texas being the two schools he may want to look at the most closely. There was a report from our friends at TexAg said, hey, A&M's not going to get in this race. They're going to stay with the guys they have on campus, and Connor Weidman, the guy they have coming in. So things have moved pretty quickly. It's kind of gone back and forth. I mean, when the news first hit, of him entering the portal, my first thought, people are texting me like, oh, I've heard this. All of a sudden, when that news hits, you start getting sources texting you out of the blue, and you're trying to weed through what to believe and whatnot. But everybody was like, I think it's going to be Texas. I think it's Texas, has a strong chance. And then maybe Texas Tech and A&M in there somewhere too. Initially, I'm thinking, okay, Texas. Then this Texas Tech stuff starts to really heat up on Saturday. There was a lot of confidence on the Texas Tech side, talking to other Texas Tech reporters and them plugging into their sources. Quinn Ewers visits Tech on Sunday. I think Tech wanted to get that thing locked up on Sunday, is what I've gathered. It didn't happen. So Quinn's kind of taking a step back and still evaluating some options. So where it goes from here, it's, I think anybody who tells you they know for sure probably is, I don't want to say they're lying, but I don't think anybody truly knows for sure. I do think Texas will still be heavily involved here, but they're going to have to make a move pretty quickly. Yes, Sark has met with the family. I still think they've got to probably have a second meeting, maybe even get Quinn Ewers down to Austin for a visit. And interestingly, I'm kind of rambling here, but I did text the same person that I was texting with on Friday night, I guess it was, about the contact with Texas. And I said, hey, do you have plans, or does Quinn have plans to get down to Austin for a visit, like what's happening with Tech and TCU? And it's been radio silence there. So I don't know what to make of that. Maybe they just don't want to tell me. Maybe there's nothing in the works. So we're still digging around on that part as of Monday morning.
So, there's so many ways and areas to go, Jason, with that. I want to get into the other schools, and then we'll maybe talk about it from like a Texas perspective. Okay. So I think there's the schools that we know and you've been reporting on, right, has been, A&M to a certain degree, Texas Tech, TCU, right? So, initially, we thought, okay, this is going to be a Texas Tech, A&M kind of race, but you're saying like A&M for the most part they've got Connor Weidman, and they don't really want to rock the boat with their own 5-star that they already got. It seemed like last year, Jason, or earlier this year, I feel like all these programs had to choose like their guy, like they're going to go after, right? And Klubnik, Clemson got him. Obviously we know Texas decided that they wanted Malik. Texas A&M got Weidman. It seemed like everyone found their guy, and no one wants to rock that boat. So you would probably say, okay, A&M is probably out of the race. Give me your understanding of Texas Tech and why Ewers is into Tech, because I think the average Longhorn fan looks at that and say, wait a second, Texas versus Tech. Like, why is this even a part of the conversation? What can you tell us about him and their relationship with that staff?
Well, you're right about that. And in fact, I talked to some recruits about it, and like, hey, have you talked to Malik? I'm like, no, but he better come to Texas. It's a smart choice. Well, don't discount Texas Tech. If you're a Texas fan, you're not doing yourself any favors if you're discounting Texas Tech in this race. Joey McGuire, the new Texas Tech head coach, has a relationship with Ewers and his family. It was just announced, I think it was late last night, it became official. Zach Kitley, the offensive coordinator, who I don't know his total backstory, but he had something to do with, I think, Patrick Mahomes' success when he was at Texas Tech under Cliff Kingsbury. So he's going to be their offensive coordinator. He was on campus yesterday on Sunday when Quinn Ewers and his family were there, which I thought was pretty brilliant by Joey McGuire, if that ends up working out, because you can have Zach Kitley look at Quinn Ewers and say, listen, I am coming here. It's not, don't read the headlines, don't read message boards, you're hearing it from me. I'm here with you right now. I'm coming here. I will be your offensive coordinator. I've done it before with, a guy who's arguably the best player in the NFL and was a #1 draft pick. We can do the same for you. And some of it, this is my speculation on my part, Omar. What is it about Texas Tech? Well, Quinn Ewers went to Ohio State, one of the biggest ponds out there, right, in college football. And there are a lot of big fish that he was battling and ended up sitting behind at that quarterback position. He's not going to have that problem at Texas Tech. And you can counterpoint to that. You can say he's probably not going to have, maybe not going to have that problem at Texas either. I mean, yes, Texas has a couple of quarterbacks on campus, but nobody that's truly established. But if I'm trying to put myself in Quinn Ewers' shoes, I'm thinking, okay, what is it about Texas Tech? Joey McGuire is a terrific coach. He's never been a college coach, but we'll see how that works. But he has a relationship with Joey McGuire, he and his family. Zach Kitley is a proven commodity as a quarterback coach, as a coordinator. If I'm Quinn Ewers and if I go to Texas Tech, I'm probably walking right into the starting lineup with very little. I'm not to earn it, of course. Everybody has to earn it, but with very little, very few hurdles, I guess. And he doesn't have to be the savior of Texas Tech. If he comes to Austin, imagine, and I'm not saying he's not coming to Austin. We can talk about the reasons he could come to Texas, but the pressure of him coming to Austin is going to be so much different than him going to Texas Tech. At Texas Tech, he can look at it and say, hey, I go there and I play a couple of years and I put up big numbers and a wide open offense. It sets me up for my ultimate goal to be a high NFL draft pick and have a career in the NFL, maybe be the next Patrick Mahomes. At Texas, there's going to be a lot of distractions. There's going to be a lot of pressure to be the savior of the Texas program. I've heard some rumblings that Texas Tech has presented some NIL opportunities for him already. So there's that aspect of it. I'm sure Texas will do the same, but that wasn't a part of the reason he committed to Ohio State, but he did get some big NIL opportunities at Ohio State, which prompted him to reclassify and enroll a year early at Ohio State. So that's going to be a factor. And Texas Tech has, from what I've told, presented some pretty big and interesting NIL opportunities. So, I mean, Tech has some things to sell. I get it. If you're a Texas fan, you're like, come on, Texas is going to the SEC. Texas is one of the biggest brands in college football. Why would you go to Texas Tech over Texas? But, if you really step back and look at it objectively, and if Quinn's looking at it, what's best for his future, not maybe year one, but maybe 3, 4, 10 years from now, I mean, Texas Tech does have a lot to offer for this situation.
So we can rationalize the Tech thing and the relationships there. What makes it more fascinating is that TCU gets into the mix, right? And so TCU at some point is supposed to have some meeting with, I'm assuming Ewers and the family at some point on Monday. We're recording this on Monday morning. What's your reading of the tea leaves of the TCU? Is it a due diligence thing on their part? You would feel like, because again, we're going, what's hard is going from a guy that's like 5-star Ohio State, like Alabama, Texas, all these other programs. He was like, let's see what's going on with TCU right down the road as well. Like, is it a thing where, hey, I've been there, done that, and I've got the accolades, so on and so forth. Now I got to find a place that I feel I'm comfortable and can play in? Yeah,
I hate to say it's a courtesy visit, because I don't know. I mean, who knows? He might wind up at TCU. Quinn's kind of he marches to the beat of his own drum a lot of times. So, but it is a stone's throw away from his house or his home in Southlake, so it's convenient. Sonny Dykes is a tremendous developer of quarterbacks as well. So it's going to be a quarterback-friendly offense there at TCU. Probably has a lot of the same similarities in Texas Tech, and that TCU's got I guess he's not a young quarterback anymore, but he would be able to play, I think, pretty early and often at TCU. Quinn Ewers is that kind of talent. And we're talking about a guy who I don't think he's ever thrown a pass in a college game. I know he came in and handed the ball off once, and I think that might have been it. So we're purely projecting on his potential, but that he's going to walk in and be a starter at any of these places. I don't know. Just to me, kind of like you said, due diligence onward. Let's take a look at TCU. It's close to home. We're not having to drive 6 hours to Lubbock or 4 hours or whatever it takes them to get down to Austin. Let's go hop over to TCU. Let's see what they have to say. Who knows? Maybe we get there and we fall in love with it. But if I'm handicapping it right now, I would probably put TCU below Texas Tech, certainly, and below Texas. Now, can that change after they visit? Of course, we've seen that happen in recruiting a lot of times. But, usually these transfer guys, they're looking for a couple things. I mean, they're looking for early playing time. It's covering transfers is a lot different than covering traditional high school recruiting. I mean, they're looking at depth charts as much as anything. And now with a guy like Quinn Ewers, I think NIL deals, opportunity to make some income is a big part of it too. But, I don't have a clear answer. I mean, Quinn and his camp, nobody's saying anything. Sources at all these various programs are even pretty tight-lipped about everything from what I've been able to gather and talking to people. But I just kind of my gut feel, and if I'm kind of reading between the lines, I do think what you said, due diligence, is a part of it. Let's go see TCU. It can't hurt, right? Can't hurt. Maybe you go there and fall in love. Maybe Sonny Dykes puts on a sales pitch of all sales pitches and wins them over. But I think TCU would probably have an uphill climb.
So, all right. So I wanted to get to the other programs before we bring it back to Texas, right? So this is the thing. And I find it very interesting because, all the years that I've been around here and you've been recruiting for a very long time, it always seems to me that guys who were committed to a program, it's very rare that they recommit to said program. Like you see it every once in a while, but it doesn't really seem to happen that often. You would think in this instance, and again, he went into the portal on Friday, but he had to be thinking about this for way longer than that. With his familiarity with Texas, for a guy who was committed to the program, I know you said like, hey, maybe we should bring him back down to Austin. He would be able to see certain things that he didn't see, the South End Zone project being finished and some of the other, amenities. But you would feel like he has enough familiarity with Texas to pull the trigger at any moment. Any idea of what the hesitation may be from their end at this? Because it seems like it's Texas, like, this program, you were a lifelong fan, you would feel like there's just a natural jump, like lifelong fan, didn't happen. There was a list of reasons why it didn't happen, last year. All those reasons are off the table now. What's the problem?
Yeah, it's a good question. And you got to remember, though, he committed to Tom Herman in that previous staff and decommitted from Tom Herman in that previous staff. So when Sark and company show up in Austin, they're initiating dialogue with Quinn Ewers, but he's already committed to Ohio State at that point. I mean, the speculation on Quinn Ewers is unlike many recruits I can remember. I mean, there was speculation long before he ever committed to Texas, and then he decommits and he commits to Ohio State. There was all kinds of speculation. Will he flip back to Texas before he signs his letter of intent with Ohio State? And like you said, that doesn't happen often where a guy decommits and then recommits, especially if a guy decommits, commits to another school, and then flips back to the other school. But there was a lot of speculation. Could that be in play? And, Quinn always shot it down. Anytime he spoke publicly, which wasn't often, he would shoot it down. No, I'm solid with Ohio State. He didn't wound up. He was solid with Ohio State. Not only is he signed with Ohio State, he signs basically a year early with Ohio State. Right, Quinn should be playing in the Texas high school playoffs right now. Southlake Carroll's still alive in the playoffs, so he could still be playing football right now. But it does seem, that's why whenever people would ask about Quinn Ewers in the transfer portal for the last 2 months, I would say, I've heard the rumors, but I haven't heard anything of substance, but everything about it makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. You mentioned it. He and his family grew up Texas fans. The depth chart, the NIL opportunities I keep bringing up, the fact that it's close to home. One person mentioned to me when he first hit the portal, hey, watch out for USC. Lincoln Riley, and I know this for a fact, Quinn Ewers and his family really loved Lincoln Riley when he was at Oklahoma. Okay, so USC, could they be a factor? Maybe, but I was also hearing, I think part of the reason is that he's, a bit homesick, wants to get closer to home. So USC didn't make much sense. Well, that certainly makes sense for Texas if he wants to be closer to home. A flagship program in the state of Texas. It's going to the SEC. He's seen, you're right, he's seen the campus a bunch. I mean, he hasn't seen maybe the upgraded facilities, but I don't think that's what Quinn Ewers would be waiting on if he wants to come to Texas. I don't think Quinn Ewers is waiting on, I want to go see the new South End Zone and, see some of these new facilities and locker rooms and those types of things. For me, Quinn and his family are very businesslike in their approach to these kinds of things. I think they're probably going to do their homework on a few programs, maybe a couple that we haven't really even heard much about, then sit down, and they'll probably, and I think this is all going to happen pretty quickly, mind you, but I keep going back to this NIL deal. I mean, I think it will come down to playing time, and I think it'll come down to NIL opportunities, and there's got to have a comfort feel with the coaching staff too. So, I know he likes Sarkisian. I know that he and his family respect Sark's history and what he's done with offenses and quarterbacks. What's keeping him from what would seem like a pretty easy move? I mean, if you'd have said 2 months ago, if you'd have said, okay, hey, Quinn Ewers is going to enter the portal on December 3rd or whatever date it was, I would have said, okay, then Texas is the obvious choice, right? It makes perfect sense. And it still makes perfect sense, but I can't give you a concrete answer on what would keep him from just flipping that switch and saying, I'm going to commit to Texas, unless they're trying to hammer out some of these details on NIL things, living arrangements. I heard he was looking at apartments in Lubbock. I mean, maybe he needs to get down to Austin and kind of get a feel for things, to kind of hammer out some of those finer details, behind the scenes details that are maybe a little less obvious than, okay, I can look at that depth chart and go in and play. There are a lot of other details they need to work out too.
So, Jason, like last year, one of the things I had written in my, Sunday column was kind of like the setup, which was, one of the things that contributed to Tom Herman and the previous staff losing their jobs was losing Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was part of it. It was recruiting had already stopped, and it was hitting a bad stride. Losing the Brockermeyer twins was a huge blow. Of course, you lose Jalen Monroe, but you feel like, okay, you still got, Quinn Ewers coming, a year or so later, and then losing Quinn kind of becomes like the death blow, especially from a recruiting standpoint, because that was it. Like after Quinn was done, that it was done. And that losing Quinn not only ticked off the fan base, but it got up the food chart or the depth chart or whatever chart you want to use.
Yeah, the food chain.
In the too many charts in sports, but in the athletic department, where it became on everyone's radar. Big money people came on their radar, right? So here he is, and he's back on the market again. My question to you is, from a Sarkisian standpoint, he's got Malik Murphy committed. He's got Casey. He's got Hudson. I don't think you and I are as down on the current quarterbacks as maybe like Ketch would be. Is there pressure on Sarkisian to get the guy the same way there was on Tom and the previous staff, or do you say, man, the quarterback room is kind of pretty good at this point, or good at this point, maybe not pretty good, and if he doesn't get Quinn, it's not really a miss?
No, I think it's a miss. I don't think it's catastrophic the way that our message board on Orange Blood was in meltdown all weekend about this stuff. I mean, the program is not going to crumble without Quinn Ewers, certainly. But, Quinn, if you look at it, Texas fans are either he's going to be the most loved person in Austin, or he's going to be one of the most hated people if he doesn't come to Texas. Because when Quinn commits to Texas, Jalen Milroe, who's a fantastic quarterback prospect of his own, flips to Alabama. So Quinn is, Jalen would tell you other factors led him to Alabama, but let's be honest, he decommitted about a week after Quinn committed to Texas. So Quinn ends up costing him Jalen Milroe. Then he decommits, so then you don't get either one of them. Texas has to scramble around and find a quarterback. It hurt Texas's chances with a lot of other recruits, a guy like Evan Stewart. It ends up ultimately maybe being the final nail in Tom Herman's coffin. I mean, Tom was on the hot seat as it was, but you're right. When Quinn Ewers decommitted, that's when it was like, uh-oh, man. Like you said, the highest of the higher ups were like taking notice of that. And recruiting just went into a complete free-for-all and a complete stall, I guess you should say. But, will it be a catastrophic miss? Not necessarily, because Malik Murphy is a guy that people a year and a half ago would have said, oh, he's a long way from being college ready. And he probably still is. But Malik Murphy, if we're talking physical tools, he's not far off from Quinn Ewers. Believe me, I've seen Malik up close. I mean, Malik can do a lot of those same things Quinn can do in terms of arm talent and stuff. And Malik has gotten a lot better as a player. You've heard me say it a bunch on our podcast and things. He's got his team in the state championship this coming weekend. Nobody thought that was possible coming into this year. So Malik's, he's just a good leader. I mean, you know more than anybody. I'm a Malik Murphy homer, so to speak. So you got Malik coming in. I still think Casey Thompson can be a good college quarterback with another year of seasoning under Tom Herman, under Steve Sarkisian. It's not catastrophic, but Quinn Ewers, some people will tell you, is a generational type talent. You can't miss on those guys and have it not be a detriment to some degree, right? And also, it's just not a good look. It's not a good look if he goes to Texas Tech or TCU over Texas. I mean, Texas has everything in the world to sell. Texas is going to the SEC. I mean, it is the biggest brand in college football still, despite the struggles. It's got the open depth chart. It's got Steve Sarkisian. It's not a good look for the program if you miss Quinn Ewers, just in public perception. And frankly, if you get Quinn Ewers, it's going to have a trickle-down effect with other recruits in the 22 and maybe 2023 classes. So now on the flip side of all that, as I talk this out, kind of speaking out loud, if you get Quinn Ewers, you're probably not going to get Arch Manning in the 2023 class. Texas may or may not get Arch Manning anyways, but if you get Quinn Ewers, I don't think you really have much of a chance to get Arch Manning. So, again, it's not catastrophic. The 40 acres is not going to just fall off the map, but it's certainly not a good look. And you'd much rather have Quinn Ewers, the old saying, one bird in hand versus two in the bush. You'd rather have Quinn Ewers on your roster than playing in Lubbock or TCU, especially if you have to potentially face him next year.
Well, how much do you think it could help, Jason, with the remaining offensive linemen in the 2022 class? If a guy like Quinn decided, within the next couple of days, I'm going to come to Texas, for the guys, you could give us the notable names that are out there, the guys who are kind of like, okay, I'm not quite sure about Texas, I'm going to figure it out. For those notable names, does that potentially help those, Sarkisian sway those guys to come to Texas as well?
Yeah, it can't hurt. I think, Quinn has a better relationship with more of the skill players, as you would assume, the wide receivers, the Evan Stewarts, Armani Winfield, a guy who recently decommitted from Texas. Could they bring him back? Evan Stewart just committed to A&M recently. Could they get Evan Stewart to flip? Maybe. The offensive lineman, I think it would have an impact. I don't think, Quinn is directly tied in with those linemen as much, but Quinn Ewers is a big enough name. I promise you, all of those offensive linemen know who Quinn Ewers is. They're all watching closely what he's going to do. And yeah, if you have him on the Texas roster, you can say, hey, listen, we've got our quarterback. We've got skill guys. We've got Xavier Worthy. We've got Bijan. We've got some talent. We just need to build the offensive line. And that's what Texas has sold these guys on before. Last week, Texas went and did some key in-homes with guys like Kelvin Banks, and really sold them on some good things, including some NIL opportunities. And I'm kind of waiting for some stuff to come out maybe today, but Texas has really done a good job of moving the needle with guys like Kelvin Banks, a 5-star lineman who's committed to Oregon. There's so many moving parts in this. You got Mario Cristobal maybe going to Miami, possibly as early as today. If that happens, I think Kelvin Banks, maybe Cam Williams, who's committed to Oregon, start trending back to Texas. And Quinn Ewers could be the thing that gets Texas over the hump there, over programs like Texas A&M potentially. Devon Campbell is a guy who's going to visit USC for a second time. Texas has always been in a good place there, but they haven't been able to just slam the door and get over the hump in that recruitment. Getting Quinn Ewers, man, I don't even know if Quinn and DJ Campbell know each other, to be honest. I've never talked to either one about the other, but I promise you, if Texas was to get Quinn Ewers, that would be something that the Texas staff could use as ammunition in their pursuit of Devon Campbell. And it would carry some weight. Now, would it be enough to totally change the narrative of Devon Campbell's recruitment? I don't know about that, but it would certainly be a feather in the cap that I think Texas could use as a positive.
One of the last things we'll ask you about Quinn, and we can move over to another topic, but I'm curious, do you think Texas is a good fit for Ewers? And despite okay, do you want him or not want him? In Ohio State, they're going to bring in 5 stars every year, high 4 stars, and every year they're going to recruit that position. I think Sarkisian would still, even if he got Quinn, would still go heavy after Manning, and I still think he'll go heavy every single year. If he was in a program where they were bringing in guys that you have to compete against every single year, well, you're not going to have that problem at Tech. And you're really not going to have that problem at a TCU. is it? And then again, I understand who he is as a talent, but from a fit perspective, if he just wants to go somewhere and play and not be challenged, I don't know if Texas is the right fit for him.
Amor, that's a really interesting question. And it kind of reminds me, if I go way back, this is long before you were even thinking of Austin. Shea Moran's, when John Makovic was here, was the #1 quarterback recruit in the country. Texas winds up getting him. Was a decent player when he comes to Texas, but every bad pass Shea Moran's would make, and it's the same way with Chris Sims when he was here, the #1 quarterback in the country. Texas fans are like, bring in the backup. Let's see what the backup can do. You're going to have that. If Quinn Ewers comes to Texas, the first interception he throws, people are going to say, oh, well, Casey wouldn't have done that. Or, hey, let's see what Malik Murphy's got. Or if Arch Manning does decide to follow Quinn Ewers, you don't think people will be clamoring for Arch Manning to get on the field? So you're right. He's probably not going to have that kind of pressure at Texas Tech. I said this to somebody, and this is not going to be popular with our Orange Bloods readers, or viewers or readers. Well, in fact, Ketch and I were talking about it, messaging. And I said, I kind of get the Texas Tech thing. It makes perfect sense to me. If he just wants to go play football, put up big numbers, be successful, probably be successful. I mean, hey, Texas Tech's going to a bowl game. Texas isn't this year. So Texas can't turn their nose up at anybody right now. But, put up big numbers and prepare himself for the NFL. Texas Tech makes a lot of sense to me, honestly. Whereas if he comes to Austin, and I said this earlier, he's going to be counted on to be the savior of the Texas program under Steve Sarkisian. And that's a lot of pressure. Not everybody wants that kind of pressure. And what I know of Quinn, and I've had conversations with people, his family members, and talk over the last year and a half or whatever, he's not afraid of competition, never was. I mean, he wouldn't have gone to Ohio State if he was. He's not afraid of pressure. I mean, he's quarterback at Southlake Carroll, which is one of the premier programs in the state of Texas. He's not afraid of any of that stuff, but he got a taste of it at Ohio State. And maybe he just kind of realizes, what? Maybe that's not what I want. Maybe I want a little bit of an easier path to playing time. And you can, if he doesn't pick Texas, Texas fans will say, oh, that's kind of the cowardly way. And he took the easy way. Well, no, is it really, or is it the smart way? I mean, he's thinking about his future, and he's thinking about what's going to better prepare him or best prepare him for an opportunity to go play in the NFL someday. I mean, Texas Tech makes a lot of sense, man, especially if what I'm hearing about these NIL deals that they are presenting to him makes sense. His commitments, or his connections rather, to that Texas Tech staff. Everything about Texas Tech makes sense. So does Texas. It just comes down to what kind of atmosphere, what kind of environment, what kind of pressure-packed environment does Quinn Ewers want to play in?
Well, there's pressure at Texas. That's for damn sure. You could be, Sam Ehlinger, who is, from a statistical standpoint, one of the best quarterbacks that's ever played. And still people will say, yeah, we never win a Big 12 title, and it's this weird, it's a kind of a thing, it's
when Sam left, people were like, some fans were like, oh, hey, we love you, Sam, but see you later.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then this year they're like, man, Sam really carried that team last year, so I know you wish for. Yeah, so true. So I know you said, Jason, we'll see what happens potentially this week.